we want to look at phrase structure today. Okay. Soon after discussing components of sentences at two levels. First, we looked at lexical level, where we have seen words, and then we looked at grammatical relations such as subject, objects and verbs. Okay? And then we looked at the abstract part of sentences such as the components that are responsible for agreement. Okay? Namely, certain lexical features like number, person and gender, and then more functional features such as tenses and agreements and so on. Right? Then we looked at nature of verb in terms of its transitive nature and intransitive nature and ditransitive nature, and we have seen that the number of objects in a sentence depends on verb. So these are the things that we have seen, and then finally, when we were looking at some sentences yesterday, we tried to look at the fact that some words seem to be grouping together. Okay? In other words, besides grammatical relations in a sentence like subjects and objects, we have more to look at in the sense that each word in a sentence may belong to a particular category, but they do not have their independent status only, which is to say they make a block, and we want to see what does that block or that formed constituent mean, what's its status, how does it work in a sentence. Okay? Do they really form a block, do they really form a unit? And then if they do, then how are they represented and how do they interact with other units, that is other blocks and components within that unit itself. Okay? So such as look at this sentence, when we talked about this, the fat monkey was jumping on the roof of this building. We are saying the fat monkey is forming a constituent, right? What makes us think so, that it's forming a constituent? If you just look at the chunk, what can you say? Why would anyone say that this chunk, the three parts of this phrase making a group together, and each one of the three parts are not in association with other units of this sentence? Are you with me? Do you understand the question? Why do we say that the first, what's the first word in this sentence? The, right? Which category does it belong to?
Article.
It's an article, right? We call it article. Why do we say that this word is part of this group? Not just because they are together, right? Is there something else going on here?
To be specific, the is helping in articulating which among the fat monkeys we are talking about.
So we can say the has something to do with monkey, right? It, to be specific, like you said, it's a specificity marker, and it tells us among many monkeys or among many fat monkeys, which monkey are we talking about? Okay? So that's the function of the. But more important part for us to understand here is this word is somehow related to monkey. right? How about the second one, fact? It's an adjective. What is it doing in this sentence? What is it talking about? We know that adjectives describe something, it gives us some additional information. So, what is it giving additional information about? The monkey, right? So, the simple answer to this question, that the words in a group are related because rest of the words are talking about one particular chunk, one particular thing in the whole chunk, right? And so which one is the most important part of this chunk? Monkey, right? Because without rest, and the reason why we are saying it's important, because without rest of the two we can have monkey, but without monkey we cannot have rest of the two. Rest of the two don't mean anything. Therefore, that's an important chunk. So let's hang in here, and we come back to the structure of a phrase in a moment to see how it works. Okay. And similarly, was jumping on the roof of this building is one large chunk, which is predicate and all. But when we look at on the roof of this building, right? On the roof of this building, let's just look at this part of the chunk. We see that there are two parts, okay, on the roof, right, and of this building. If I give you the whole chunk together, which one is the most important part of this whole chunk? Anybody? Please look at the whole thing. On the roof of this building, this is what we are saying is one chunk, right? Which one is the most important part? Like monkey was the important part of the first group of words. Building or roof? If you are saying roof, you need to say why. If you are saying building, you need to say why. Go ahead.
Because the monkey was jumping on the roof and we are specific to that. It may
Sure, it was jumping on the roof. Roof of what? Roof cannot be hanging thing. Right? In a way, I'm trying to answer your part. So why is building important in this whole phrase? Because on the roof, right, in a way is talking about of this building. Alright? So the relationship between, see there are two phrases in this bigger phrase, right? And one is related to the other one. Okay? So now, if you are looking at the first one, on the roof, then roof is important. Because the is talking about roof, and on as a preposition is also telling us something about the roof. If you look at another, the last chunk of this building, same thing is happening. What is this? As a category, anybody? This as a word, which category does it belong to? No idea? Let me ask you this thing again. You have heard this word this before, right? Which category does it belong to? Okay, forget about category. What does it do? What does it do in a sentence? No? No, it doesn't specify anything. It's a pronoun. Okay. What do pronouns do?
Substitute for each time, instead of each time specifying what the subject is, we use this to substitute. I mean, like,
So what is this substituting here?
I mean, instead of specifying what that building was, you replace it by this. I mean, you might have specified it earlier or something.
what you're saying is partly right, okay, but not in this context. This, and you are also right that it's a pronoun, okay, but among pronouns, and my expectation is not that you have a ready-made answer to all these questions. The reason why I'm asking you these questions is because you pay attention to these little things. I mean, I don't need to tell you, I don't even need to ask you, but even sarcastically, that what does this mean, right? So all I'm asking you is that you look at these little things. It's definitely a pronoun, but it's a specific type of pronoun which is called demonstrative pronoun. Which talks about, and you are also right that pronouns usually replace nouns, okay? But in this case, it's a demonstrative pronoun which is talking about, which helps us understand the directionality. We are talking about this building, not that one, okay? So, but the point, so the category wise it's a pronoun, it's a demonstrative pronoun, it has a function, all that is fine, but it's related to the word building, right? Similarly, so on the roof of this building, you see it's a large phrase of similar, two phrases of similar status, but one is related with the other one, right? So words group together to make a phrase, and phrases are related to one another in one way or the other. They do not, in other words, phrases do not have their independent status. So you will remember this thing. This is an important and crucial juncture for you to understand a sentence. Words group together to form a phrase, okay, and then such phrases in a sentence are not independent of one another, they are related to one another in one way or the other, okay. So now before we move to the next slide, in the same sentence, if I tell you let's look at the whole phrase again. On the roof of this building, right? We saw that on the roof is related to another phrase of this building. Now we are talking about one whole chunk, on the roof of this building. What is this related to in this sentence? What is this related to in this building? Is the question clear? People decide, understand the question? Yes? No? No. So you need to tell me. I can see that the question is not clear. You see, I am talking about this whole phrase. Okay? I'm talking on the roof of this building. And just now I told you that phrases are not independent in sentences. So if we have if this is a sentence, isn't it? In this sentence, this phrase is related with which component of the sentence?
The verb phrase.
Sorry?
The verb phrase.
The verb phrase, right? The whole thing is part of verb phrase, but it's also related to the verb phrase, and to be really precise, in the verb phrase, it's related to verb, right? It's related to verb. So, and what is this related with? The fat monkey is also related to verb, right? And what's the nature of this verb, jump? This a transitive or intransitive verb? Transitive or intransitive verb? Transitive verb? How do you think it's a transitive verb? It's not remember, we cannot question jumping on what? We can only say jump. We can only question the word jump. We can only question the verb jump with what? Can we question the verb jump with what? Jump what? Not jumping on what? Get it? Stand and stand up are two different verbs. Okay, I'll go to those things later. So after looking at every single word every single part of this sentence, how every single part is related to rest of the part. Is this making sense to you? Now, let's look at some more phrases and see how it works. So, see, when this is what we have been looking at so far. When we look at the two words, the student, we know that this is forming some kind of a group, right? Because the words like the, a, some, to, these are all when they precede a noun in language like English, when they precede the nouns like student, book, papers, pens, they seem to be forming a group. And in that group, the, some and to are called determiners. The same thing you just now somebody said, articles. Means the same thing, articles or determiner. Together, when we have a determiner and a noun, together they form the phrase which is called a noun phrase. Why do we call it a noun phrase? So it should be simple. Remember, when we were looking at the fat monkey, the phrase fat monkey, what's the most important part of this phrase? Monkey, right? The word that is most important part will head the whole phrase, because rest of the components are related around it. Okay? The has nothing to do with fat. Fat has nothing to do with the, but both have something to do with monkey, right? So it's a head of a noun, and therefore it's a noun phrase. Similar things you see, all the words are nouns, therefore with the determiners, the phrase that come up is a noun phrase. Clear? I am going to show you the structure in a moment. Now, look at this one. What's this? Now we see, call the doctor. Call the student. You see, the noun phrase is now in association with a verb, right? The focus changes. What's the important part of this phrase? Verb. Therefore, it becomes a verb phrase. So a verb phrase can have a noun phrase in it. Remember, just now I was telling you that phrases are not independent entities. Phrases in a sentence are related to another one. And this is how the whole combinatorial process in a sentence works. This is how we build a sentence. So a noun phrase is now part of a verb phrase, and the whole thing is called the verb phrase. Buy a book, bring some papers, give 2 pens. Okay? Now, look at this one. You have just seen on the roof, you have just seen on the building of this building. Now see, again we still have those noun phrases that we started with, like the students, a book, some papers, 2 pens, but instead of verbs we have something else now, which is with, from, again with, and by. These words are prepositions. We have talked about prepositions and postpositions. Remember or not remember? Prepositions and postpositions. Prepositions are some functional words in a language like English which precede nouns. If the similar type of element follows the noun, they are called postpositions, right? In a language like Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, words like with, from, by, they will be following nouns. Am I right? Right? What's the word for from in Telugu? How do we say from the book? From a book. What? No Telugu speaker here? Loudly, loudly.
I didn't know that.
Nundi.
So how do we say the whole phrase? From a book. Pustakam Rundi. Runi.
Nundi.
Okay. So do you see that word is following the word pustakam? It's never going to precede the noun. Therefore, our languages are post-positional languages. Doesn't change anything. It's just the position of the functional element is different. Okay. So now it becomes the fact that the whole NP is part of a preposition. So as long as we are only talking about NP, that is noun phrase, the head of that NP is a noun, right? But in a prepositional phrase, the head of the whole thing is a preposition. So when we say with the students in this phrase, what's important, what becomes important and what becomes head of the phrase is a preposition. Okay? And then we will see what's the relationship between preposition and rest of the phrase in a moment. Okay. So you have seen three phrases, right? Noun phrase, verb phrase and prepositional phrase. Likewise, we could have more phrases depending on the category, right? You also saw that what's the important part of a phrase is what is it that the whole thing, whole story is revolving around, such as the fat monkey, the monkey is important because everything else is talking about monkey. Okay? Now, so the way it works is the following. Now let me show you something on the board. So we see we have a noun, right? This is called a lexical item, a lexical category, right? And then the moment it comes with a determiner, right? The two things make a phrase. All right? Which is to say, and the phrase is a noun phrase. Which is to say, if noun heads the phrase, it's okay that it has a determiner, but a noun phrase could be formed even in the absence of a determiner. Okay? That is, so if we have to say the boy is a noun phrase, and if we don't have this, if we simply say boys, right, with no determiner, it's still a noun phrase. It's still a noun phrase. Okay, and I'm going to show you more of this stuff. So, what's the okay? Let's look at since we are talking about phrases. Let's first talk about phrase structure rules. Then you saw that we get a preposition here, and then it becomes a prepositional phrase. So we can say to the boy, and it becomes a prepositional phrase, right? Now you put another, it gets a verb, and it becomes a verb phrase. Okay? So far, so here you have a noun phrase, here you have a prepositional phrase, right? And now you have a verb phrase. So how do I close this thing? Should not be difficult so far. Now, when we are talking about a verb phrase, it could have only a noun phrase. It could have more than a noun phrase. That is, it may have more than one noun phrase. It could also have a prepositional phrase or maybe two prepositional phrases, right? On the roof of this building, it may have two prepositional phrases in it, right? Jumping on the roof of this building, the whole verb phrase has a verb phrase and two prepositional phrases, right? Within the prepositional phrase, you see a preposition, a prepositional phrase on this building, on the roof. The roof is a noun phrase and on the roof becomes a prepositional phrase. We are talking about the same thing so far. But this is not a sentence yet. Why is this not a sentence so far? Can we say this is a sentence now? Even if we know some sentences like imperative ones, we can say give the book to the boy. Is this a sentence now? No. It still has something missing from here, which is another NP, okay, which is called subject. Okay, which is now this is a now this is a sentence. Are you with me? Understand this? Without this thing, it's not a sentence. Now, we can pick, okay, we can pick what kind of an NP comes here. But there has to be something here for this to get a sentence status. And these are the things that we have been talking about without this configuration. Okay? So even when we don't say you and we just say give the book, we mean that this is here. Okay? We have a different sentence. Then something else happens. So far, now let me draw your attention to something else. You may have seen that the noun phrase becomes part of a prepositional phrase. The whole prepositional phrase combines with the verb and becomes part of a verb phrase, right? But there isn't anything what we refer to as agreement. Okay? That takes place only between these two. Right? So if I say John give a book to the boy, is that a good sentence? John give a book to the boy, is that a good sentence? Yes? John give a book to the boy, is this a good sentence? Some of you are saying yes.
Punctuation is correct and very clear.
Sorry?
If punctuation is good, then you can say it's good sentence.
Right. I mean, so what you are saying is your punctuation is correct. We are saying, John, you give the book to the boy. That's not what I am asking. I am asking, if I want to say, John, give a book to the boy, is that a good sentence? That's not. How will that become a good sentence? We need to do something here, right? So what is it missing actually? The agreement is not correct. That is singular noun, singular subject, there is no singular marker here, or At least this doesn't reflect agreement properties taken care of. So, in the combinations of phrases, how phrases are combined with another phrase is one part, agreement is another part, which takes place between these two. I don't think I'm talking about anything new. We have already discussed this thing, haven't we? Yes or no? Right? So this is how we get a full sentence. And this thing that you see, sentence, NP, VP, right? So we can simply say a sentence is basically a noun phrase and a verb phrase. Is that true? Can we say this thing? Then if I have to expand this, I can say a noun phrase is determiner and a noun, right? A verb phrase is, if I have to give a description for this sentence, a verb phrase is what? Verb plus prepositional phrase, right? And a prepositional phrase is what? Preposition and noun phrase, right? I don't need to specify this again because it's already been specified. This is called, what you have seen so far is components of a phrase. And this is, if you put a sentence this way, this is called phrase structure rules. Okay? And it will vary depending upon a sentence, right? For example, for this sentence or this structure that you see, this rule takes care of everything. It will vary, but what is not going to vary is what makes a noun phrase, what makes a verb phrase, what makes a prepositional phrase. So a prepositional phrase is always going to have a preposition and noun phrase, or it depends, it may have something else also. Okay? But looking at the prepositional phrase, you can give a phrase structure rule. Right? That is how I just wanted you to understand phrases and phrase structure rules. Is there any difficulty here for anyone? No? This doesn't solve everything. Okay? In the sense that, okay, I'll talk about what it doesn't solve little later. These are rules describing a sentence, describing a noun phrase, describing a verb phrase and a prepositional phrase. But this doesn't give you structure. In other words, it doesn't tell us how different components of a sentence are hierarchically related in a sentence. Everything in a sentence doesn't have same status. That is, on a flat line, we do see some hierarchical stuff here, but not every hierarchy is clear. That is, not every kind of relationship between object and the verb and subject and the verb is clear from this. So for that, we'll look at a structure, and the reason why we are looking at a structure is structure tells us the hierarchical relations. Okay, so what I'm saying is, look at this. We have a determiner in a noun phrase, and we have a noun. If you're looking at the linear structure, linear representation, linear order, then it looks like there are two components. That's all, right? It doesn't tell you, and we know because determiners talk about the noun, so noun heads the phrase, and it's more important than the determiner, because determiner alone may not make a noun phrase. These things, these generic descriptions are okay, but this doesn't tell us the status of components within the phrase, or when they combine with another phrase, what's the status of this thing, and then what becomes the status of this noun phrase within this prepositional phrase, and why does it need to combine with that. So these things are not clear from phrase structure rules. Are you with me? What phrase structure rule simply tells us is, it gives us a description. It looks more fancy, right? What we are looking at, if you look at this sentence, these rules, right? These rules are mere description of this sentence. That's what I am telling you. Do you follow this thing? These rules are mere description of this sentence. What it does not do is, why is it that these two things need to combine, and once they combine, what becomes their status of a noun phrase, the whole noun phrase within this prepositional phrase, is not clear. Okay.
Once you say it's a propositional phrase, don't you feel that the proposition is more important than the noun?
Of course, once we,
There is an implicit hierarchy there.
so, true, absolutely right. There is an implicit hierarchy that preposition is more important and noun phrase is not important, not that important. But then what's the relationship between the two? We can still, what you're saying is, we can capture the significance of something, of a noun phrase within a verb, within a prepositional phrase. We can capture the significance of a prepositional phrase within a verb phrase, right? Or a noun phrase within the verb phrase. But it doesn't tell us okay, let me put it this way right now. It doesn't tell us more with what other kinds of description, other kinds of explanation could tell you. Okay, and I'm going to show you what are other things that are more important to explain a sentence. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Probably it's hard to talk about what it doesn't do without describing what we get to do with other kinds of explanation. So please keep these phrase structure rules in mind, so that we can compare what are the things that this doesn't do. Right? Now, before we dismiss this thing, we have just seen that, and we are not going to dismiss in the sense that it has no meaning. No, we are not saying that it has no meaning. It nicely describes a sentence, and what it also does is, it gives you the framework for generating lots of sentences. For example, this is the phrase structure for a sentence. So all the sentences are going to have the same phrase structure. Okay, as far as we are concerned here, all the sentences are going to have this. Then when all the noun phrases are going to have this, all the prepositional phrases are going to have this, and all the verb phrases are going to have this. Whether all of them are needed in a sentence or not is not a restriction. A sentence may have simply a noun phrase and a verb phrase, right? And it may end here or it just may end here. A sentence may not have a prepositional phrase at all. Now, the point is, phrase structure rules help us generate lot of more and new sentences. Phrase structure rules were also part of, or are part of, generative framework. So once in the earlier days of this study, this was very prominent, when people had not figured out more. By now, lot more things have been figured out, and we are going to talk about other stuff. Okay. So see, instead of representing these things in terms of rules, later on what happened was, these things were represented in terms of structural configuration. So look at this, how it works. So the structure of a phrase is this way, and then we'll stop. for the structure, the branching is always going to be binary. Okay? The branching is always going to be binary. So here is your determiner, and bear with me, because we want to keep the structure only binary, so there was an intermediate category created. Okay? And then we have okay, let me put it this way for a moment. Are you with me? Do you see this structure? We are almost doing the same thing here. We are almost trying to do the same thing, but we are putting this thing in terms of structural configuration. For that structure, the branching is only and always binary. Okay? So we could have also said that, look, determiner and noun here, end of the story, right? But if we do that, then this, let's put it here. If we do this, right, then there is no other way for expanding this phrase. Okay? No other way to expand this phrase. This becomes a closed phrase. What this kind of, in order to expand this phrase, an intermediate category was created. This is called n prime or n bar. Okay? It helps us branch further. And this becomes the head position in a phrase. So this position is called where we get a specifier, where we get determiner, this position is called specifier position, in which we get determiner. This position is called head position, in which we get the main component of the phrase. And this position is called a complement position. Okay? So the idea is, in retaining the head of the phrase, we need to have these two things. Give me a couple of more minutes to show you why and how. Okay? Now, look at also, this is going to be the blueprint of structure of phrases. We talk about any phrase, whether we are talking about a prepositional phrase, we are talking about a verb phrase, we are talking about entire sentence. Okay? This is going to be the structure of a phrase. In every phrase, we are going to have a specifier and head and a complement. In every phrase, we are going to have specifier, head and a complement. Okay? Now, if we want to look at a prepositional phrase. Okay? A prepositional phrase. How do we represent a prepositional phrase in this structure? Sorry? Right, but okay. First, you are right that we will add here, true. But we'll see that addition in a moment. Just give it to me here. I have okay. Is this clear? That binary branching in this term is not giving us expanding freedom. Therefore, an intermediate category so that we can branch further. Let me show you a prepositional phrase. So this is how a prepositional phrase works. Remember, this is a blueprint of a phrase. So we are going to have specifier, and here we are going to have what? P prime, right? And then P, and this place is going to be for complement. Okay? So what's the preposition in this phrase? To the boy, what's the preposition? To. So that comes here heading the phrase. In the boy, we have the and boy, right? We had a determiner, that is a specifier. In the prepositional phrase, you don't have a specifier. So this position stays empty. We have a head, preposition comes here, and then in the complement position, we have an NP, which is the boy, right? Now, this NP position is going to be expanded again this way. I think, Pawan, this is what you were talking about, it will add. So if you bring this NP position here, then you see the structure of a prepositional phrase. See this thing? Now, this kind of addition or expansion will not be possible if we didn't have this intermediate category. So I am purposely emphasizing on this intermediate category. So the sole reason for this intermediate category to bring in hypothetically a space for retaining binary branching and creating a space for further addition, right? I'll talk about the nature and the relationship between head and the complement and head and the specifier in a day or so. But right now, I only want you to see that the structural in a structural representation, the configuration is always binary. The branching is always binary. We retain it by introducing an intermediate category. We have a phrase and we have a category. You see this? We have a category, preposition, and then we have a phrase, prepositional phrase. This thing is not really needed. This doesn't mean anything. But we created this thing just to retain binary branching. And then what is more important is the relationship between specifier and head and complement. This gives you this kind of hierarchy and relationship becomes clearer, and the discussion becomes more relevant when we look at these relations. Final thing, which we will, and this is where we will start from tomorrow, that the blueprint is always like this: phrase, intermediate category, and head, complement and specifier and the complement. And whether we are talking about a noun phrase or a prepositional phrase, since it's going to retain this way, a verb phrase will work exactly like this way. So this whole phrase, whole structural representation of phrase is called X bar theory. X bar theory. Since it's one prime, so sometimes this thing is equated as 2 prime. Okay, so when you put 2 primes, it means NP. So the idea is 0, 1, 2. Whether we say NP or N double bar, it's the same thing. So this whole structural notion, this whole notion of a structural representation is called X bar theory, because in that X you can put any category and get the structure. More on this tomorrow. We have a class waiting. Please look at this thing. Please look at this thing. It's in the first chapter of the book now. Now we have moved, or you have moved from introduction. The whole thing is described in that book too. Okay.